Welcome everyone to Promoting Calm Through Your Environment. Thank you for joining us today and spending your evening with us. We're going to be talking a lot about sensory health and emotional well-being. And all of this applies to you in this moment right now. So please take care of your needs in whatever way that you need as we go along to be able to best participate in our event today. My name is Grace Eilers. I am the Family Child Care Content Specialist at Satellite Family Child Care System, and I'm going to be facilitating today. However, we are going to hear a lot from family child care educators Beth Zielinski, Jennifer Cribben. That will be through the form of a video interview. And we're also going to see and hear Michelle Envik in action in her program. So to start us off, this event is called Promoting Calm Through Your Environment. So let's bring to mind, what is calm? How would you in this moment define it? So please, if you are willing and able, send those answers in the chat. How would you define calm? Everyone is engaged, says Susan. Quiet, organized, everyone's needs are met. That's what Amber says. Angelica says, having no worries. I see relaxed, peaceful, free from stress, strong emotions. Anaya says that. No signs of distressed, relaxed environment. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of similar words here from our group. Feeling safe. See quite a few more. Relaxed is a word that's coming to mind for a lot of you. Shakora says confident, settled. Betty Ann says you can predict what is going to happen next. Nothing sudden or disturbing happening. Yeah, that predictability. A lot of similar themes here coming up for this group. And I am not surprised that so many of you are thinking about this idea of calm, being relaxed, safety. We're going to talk about all of these themes today. I look at the image here on the slide from Michelle's program, and I think about how if you were to ask most people what calm was, a lot of them would think of, children sitting nicely and playing with a puzzle. And we're going to challenge this idea today that calm is more than, children sitting and reading books. It can be that, but it's more deeper than that. It's about children's mind and bodies being connected. So we're going to dig into that a little more now. So calm is an emotional state of regulation where you as the individual you're open to learning, you're open to exploring your environment, to taking risks, to considering new ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And there are things that must happen, and you called on a few of them in your responses to how would you define calm. There are things that must happen within a person and within their environment in order to reach that state of calm, this state of regulation. So at the bottom here of my makeshift pyramid, I have basic needs of food, sleep, safety, and love. And safety was a common word that came up with for so many of you. Next is our sensory health, and that's our body's interaction with incoming stimuli from the environment. Finally, our emotional well-being. So we must feel as though we have control over our emotions. So I know all of you who are coming here today, you have a pretty good understanding of supporting children's basic needs of food, sleep, safety, and love. And this is, one of the reasons why we have licensing and certification. Today, for our time together, we're really going to focus on the sensory health and the emotional well-being pieces of this pyramid, because those are precedents of calm that you as the educator can support through your interactions with children and through your environment. So we're going to focus on those two pieces today. So here are some examples of what calm might look like. On the left here, you can see, if you were to just look at that, it might just, upon first glance, look like, jumbled toys thrown together. But upon closer observation, you can see that there is quite a method to this child's play and that they're in a deep state of play. On the top right, you can see children playing musical chairs. That's a game that plays with movement. It gets your heart rate going. On the bottom right, we see a child who is intently focused on a paintbrush, and maybe she's wondering what the paintbrush is going to do to the water in the bowl below. All of these on the slide are examples of what calm might look like. On the flip side, children who are stressed, or I'll refer to it as dysregulated, those children whose minds and bodies are not connected, they're going to show either, emotional shutdown. They may have emotional outbursts. They may not have control over their bodies. Particularly for our infants and toddlers, they're going to lose body posture and body control. So thinking about that, in all of these images, children may become dysregulated for whatever reason. It may be big emotions. I'm thinking about the child on the left here, and in this scenario, maybe another child runs through and messes up their arrangement, have pretty big feelings about that. It could be sensory discomfort tied to sensory health. I think about that child on the bottom right there, and that bottle or that bowl tips over. She might become uncomfortable with the feeling of being wet and is going to become dysregulated from that and going to need support. It could be a mixture of those things. I think about the musical chairs game on the top right and how these children, maybe get too worked up from the excitement of the fast music and the stopping where their minds and bodies aren't connected and they might need to take a break and calm themselves. Or, maybe someone gets really upset because they don't get to a chair fast enough and then they're out. And in any of these scenarios, it could also come down to children's basic needs as well. All of that to say, there are many reasons for a child to become stressed or dysregulated. This is going to happen every day. And today we're going to focus on setting children up with the supports that they need to reach that state of calm again through you as a supportive adult, through your environment, and then also through intentional teaching of calming techniques that you can refer back to in these moments where you see that children are starting to get stressed and worked up. This is a graph showing the pattern of children's stress hormone throughout a day in childcare, in a childcare program specifically. So cortisol is the stress hormone I will be talking about. It's a very important hormone. It gets us out of bed. It regulates our blood pressure. It's also released along with adrenaline during your fight or flight response when that's activated. And what research like Manny Sumner, Bernard, and Dozier's show us is that young children, when they're in a childcare program, you see an increase in stress hormone production from mid-morning to mid-afternoon. You don't see that when children are, and this is speaking generally, you don't see that when children are not attending childcare at home during home days. It's more of a plateau. But to strive for, similar to most adults, your cortisol level should be the highest in the morning and the lowest at night. And I show this because this tracks with real life. Mid-morning to mid-afternoon is lunch and nap time. Both of those activities can be particularly stressful. And also this graph is an average. So for children who have experienced trauma or stress, their cortisol levels are going to be heightened, and it's going to become more challenging for them to reach that state of calm. I set this up to help paint a picture of cortisol production and maybe to consider times throughout the day that you might want to focus more on the pieces that we're going to be talking about today. So just keep this in the back of your mind. So again, there's this pattern of emotion regulation or, being calm, becoming dysregulated, and then coming back to a state of calm again. So this session today is called Promoting Calm. We're going to focus on the promotion piece. So how to support children in their environment so they can manage their emotions and listen to their bodies so that they don't have to experience these frequent feelings of being overwhelmed within their environment, and they feel empowered to take care of their own needs with support through you. Some of what we're going to talk about is going to tie into supporting those moments of regulation for children, but really, really focused in on the promotion piece. Things that you can control as an educator beforehand to help children succeed throughout the day. So here's our agenda. We are going to think about how you as an educator impact children's calm. Then we're going to think about the sensory health aspect of regulation, looking at it from the perspective of your environment. And then we're going to end with some examples of calming techniques that you can practice with children. And I'm going to want to hear from you all what you're already doing, because I know so many of you are already doing a lot of these calming techniques. So just to reiterate, throughout our time together, we want to hear from you. What are you doing that ties into this? What are your reactions that come up for you? We would love to hear all of those things. As promised, we're going to start with considering the impact of you as the very important adult and the young children that you care for and educate in their lives. So as all of you know, the young children, they rely on you to support their regulation. And you as an educator hold a lot in mind for each individual child when you have, especially when you have a mixed age group. But if you're caring for a group of children, you're going to be holding a lot. Basic needs, food, sleep, safety, and love, their sensory health, and their emotional well-being. And every child is going to have very unique needs, as all of you know, especially children who have experienced trauma or are going through toxic stress in their life. For example, they're going to need a lot more for fulfilling that basic need of safety. Now, if this already feels like a lot to hold all of these things, you also have to hold all of these pieces for yourself. So your basic needs, your sensory health, your emotional well-being. You can only share with others what you have, and children learn over time how to support themselves through observing others taking care of their needs. So this does not mean that you have to be perfect, always calm, always happy, and never overwhelmed, never tired. That's not realistic, and that's actually not helpful, because it's really, really impactful to children when you verbalize where you are and how you are problem solving and taking care of your needs in the moment. So not trying to say that you need to be perfect and calm and centered all the time, but rather that you are verbalizing to children and you're telling them, it's really loud in here. I'm going to cover my ears for 10 seconds, or whatever helps you calm yourself down. And we're going to talk about that momentarily. But first, we're going to see this in action. We're going to see the main way that you support children's calm. You share it. You share your calm. We love sharing in early childhood education, don't we? Sometimes you'll see this referred to as co-regulation, emotion contagion, and this refers to that phenomenon that my regulation state speaks to your regulation state. So we as humans have this amazing ability to mimic and mirror the regulation states of those around us. Young children are particularly susceptible to this. So, you see this when you care for, an infant and a young toddler, or even two infants. One cries, the other might start crying as well. We're going to see Michelle step in here so effortlessly as these two children, they're becoming dysregulated, they're kicking toys, it's the morning, their minds are not in control of their bodies. And we're going to watch Michelle share her calm.
Bring that volume. Where do you think we should bring it down? Right there? Okay, let's bring it down to there and start. And I see you have very high energy for how you're playing right now. I saw some grapes getting kicked around and other things like that. So what could you do instead of what you're doing that won't destroy toys? You could pick them up. Absolutely, that works. What else? You could put them up somewhere so you don't end up kicking them. Absolutely, that's another option. Okay. So are you going to be able to solve that problem on your own? Yeah. So we don't destroy our toys? We want to be responsible with them, right? All right.
You could see in this video, Michelle, and I wasn't quick enough with recording, but the first thing she did when she went over to these two boys, she knelt down and she met them in their emotional regulation state. She said, "You guys are way up here." And then while lowering her voice, she says, "How can we bring that down to here?" And that subtle technique, I want to pull that out and highlight that because it has a tremendous impact. Meet children in their emotional state so that you can help them. And we're going to hear Beth is going to say this later. She says, help them get on your train. I know, Beth, you're here, so we'll have to hear more from you to help them calm. So saying things like, you are so frustrated. Your idea is not working. Or, you are sad you didn't get a turn with the car. Or if you're noticing there's maybe some sensory health things going on where children's minds are not connected to their bodies and they're really big with their movements and becoming unsafe, you could come over similar to what Michelle did in this video and say, your bodies are really, really big right now. And then you're helping them problem solve and regulate with you as a supportive adult. So you're meeting them in the regulation state and slowly drawing them back to help calm their bodies down. This is a technique to use before children go into that panic mode. It's going to be very hard to reach children with words when they do hit that peak and are so overwhelmed. We don't have time to dig into that today. That'll have to be for another time, but I just want to recognize that these are techniques to implement when you're starting to see that children are becoming stressed. Their minds are disconnected from their bodies. So again, you can only share your calm if your body is calm. So although you are meeting children in their emotional states at first, you as the educator must be in control of your own emotions so that you do not take on children's dysregulated state. And we know that caring for a mixed age group of children is emotionally demanding. So take a moment, feel free to share. How do you, as you are right now, remain calm throughout the day? How do you stay regulated in your body so that you can share your calm? If you do not have an answer to this question, you are not alone, and it is okay. This is a question to get you thinking about what you're currently doing. And then we're going to hear from Beth and we're going to hear from Jennifer talk through their strategies. Oh, bubbles, chalk, noticing wildlife. Sensory experiences are very helpful for me. And counting in your head to give yourself a break. All of these are great. A walk. Betty Ann's mantra, you just need to make nap time. You just need to make nap time. So that self-talk, you're implementing that self-talk. That's actually mine. I worked as a mental health practitioner in a clinic for 3 to 6-year-old children who were repeatedly asked to leave multiple child care programs. So a lot of emotional and behavioral challenges, as you can imagine. I had to find ways to calm myself. And for me, it was that self-talk and that breathing that I see is common within this group. A question, or not a question, but a statement that came to mind so often was, this child is really struggling right now. I would just tell myself that, and I would just Take a deep breath and say, oh, I'm not struggling right now. How can I help them? Because they're clearly struggling. Well, thank you all. I see singing as well, dancing. Thank you for sharing. And if you're still typing, please continue to type and send that through the chat. We're going to hear from Beth. I asked her, how do you remain calm throughout the day? And this was Beth's response. And Beth is the owner of Tadpoles to Frogs in Wales, Wisconsin.
So the first thing I do is breathe. After I've taken a little bit of time to breathe and calm myself down, then I self-reflect a little bit and look at what my perspective is. Am I angry because of one particular thing, or do I really need to take a step back and look at my own behavior? Because our behavior does affect how the children behave. One thing that happens when I feel really dysregulated is I enjoy cooking, and that is a outlet for me. So I might say, okay, I am dysregulated. I need to make the kids kind of get on my train. And so I might go to the cupboard and bring out potatoes, and I will have them help me peel potatoes and cut potatoes, and they're random cuts of potatoes. But then I'll put them in water, and later in the day, because maybe I might already have the meal planned, later in the day, we end up making fries out of them. And then they're happy. They've seen a product of their labor, and I'm happy because now everybody's calm, and it's just something that works for me and my program.
Beth said something that many of you also said. Take a deep breath. Check in with yourself first. This is not a skill that comes naturally. I'm going to say that again. This is not a skill that comes naturally. Something that you work on over time. Beth uses cooking as an outlet. I thought that was a great example of one way where you as an adult, you're feeling dysregulated in your body. How can you support yourself and also support the children? And cooking was that outlet for herself for calming. For me, it was Play-Doh. If I was feeling like, again, sensory experiences was one that came up in the chat. If I was feeling overwhelmed in the moment and it was safe for me to go sit and crack open some Play-Doh, that's where you would find me. Love the feeling of it. We're going to hear from Jennifer. Jennifer is the owner of Jennifer's Joyous Ones in Verona, and she has a slightly different approach because her program's slightly different. So we're going to hear from Jennifer now.
I have staff, so we often tag team, as we like to call it, if one of us is struggling with a particular child and just need to remove ourselves from the situation for a little bit, then the other will jump in and have a moment with the child. We like to keep things light. We'll start acting silly, or we'll break out into a song when the kids are just being really loud or having a hard time listening, or just kind of all over the place. So we sing a lot. We just make connections with each child as much as possible and talk about their likes and their interests, and share stories with them, and just really try to nurture them and help them feel a part of our program. If something isn't working, I feel like we're really good at problem solving together and how we can better support the children, or do we need to change up our space, those types of things.
So Jennifer has staff that work with her in her program. She has other educators with her, so she speaks with them and has someone to reflect with. And I know some of you said that you can talk to a friend is a way to calm yourself, saying that you need a break, all of those things. So just another way to look at it. For Jennifer, it's saying like, I need a break. I'm going to speak with my staff members to tag team in. So again, prioritize your calm and your regulation because, that connection between your mind and your body, that's going to transfer to children. You must be in tune with your body and have a good understanding of your own emotions to help children develop those skills. I know each of you already sacrifices a lot every day in the work that you do, and you must also prioritize your well-being. And this does not mean that, you check out and ignore children's emotional distress because it overwhelms you. This means rather you check in with yourself, you take a moment if it's safe to do so, you plan ahead, and you have those built-in resources and those techniques that we're going to talk about later today if you're feeling like you need more techniques to help you in the moment. For Beth, it was going to the kitchen, grabbing anything, and just having the children help prepare something to cook. For Jennifer, it was saying to other team members, I need a minute. And it is always okay to need a minute. If it is safe to do so, it's all right to step back for a moment. Because children need adults who are bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And you can only be that when you are calm and regulated yourself. So that's why we started off our time together promoting calm, talking about you as the educator because you are that foundation. Now thinking about what's on the slide here, I encourage all of you to think about for a moment, how do you support yourself? I heard a lot about, how you support yourself in the moment. How also do you support yourself throughout the day and outside of your work? So just take a moment and think about those pieces. How do you support yourself and fill up your own emotional well-being and your own sensory cup to be able to be present and emotionally available to the children in your program? So we established that foundation of you, in your program's calming atmosphere. It's going to be you ultimately. We're going to transition speaking about the sensory environment and the sensory health aspect. So sensory health, again, comes before children are able to feel their mind and body connected and open to exploration and learning. So to start us off, we have the briefest introduction to sensory processing that I could find, just so that, for those, I know we have so many different folks joining us today. This is a refresher on the sensory systems and sensory preferences. And then we're going to think about, again, turning inward, thinking about your own sensory preferences.
We have 8 senses. 5 you have probably heard of: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And 3 that you may not be familiar with. The vestibular sense, sometimes known as the gravity or balance sense, allows us to move smoothly. It helps us with balance while we walk and run, and to stay upright when we sit and stand. Proprioception is the sense of self-movement, force, and body position. It is present in every muscle movement you have. Without proprioception, you wouldn't be able to move without thinking about your next step. Interoception helps you understand and feel what's going on inside your body. For example, when you're hungry, thirsty, in pain, or need the toilet. Imagine for each of our 8 senses, we have a cup. And for us to feel regulated, each cup needs to be full. Each time we get some sensory input for one of our senses, it fills up the cup a little. For each sense, some of us have big cups and some of us have small cups. Imagine you have a small cup for sound. It fills up quickly with a little noise, and any more can feel overwhelming. Imagine you have a big cup for proprioception. You will need lots of movement to feel regulated. Understanding someone's sensory profile is really important in order to know what they need to feel, learn, and perform at their best.
All right. Now we're going to take a few moments to reflect on your own sensory preferences. Again, thinking about you as the foundation for children's calm. What are your sensory preferences? I sent it in your registered email, and I also will have a link to it if you don't have that available to you right now. The adult sensory checklist in English and Spanish. So we're going to take a few moments to go through this and consider what do I need from a sensory perspective? What do I enjoy? What are the sensory inputs that I seek out when, I'm bored, anxious, or tired? So you'll see on the sensory checklist, which if Laura Cruz, if you could please send that in the chat if you haven't done so already, in English and Spanish. So a link to it. So if you don't have it pulled up, Laura will send it in the chat. Thank you. And what you'll see is that it's broken down into the sensory systems. So you'll go through, and for each item, you are going to choose, do I seek that out? Do I avoid it? Or am I more neutral? I don't really have a strong preference. And you're going to go through that for each of the items on this checklist. You'll tally them up, and then it'll give you a good indication of what are the sensory systems that you seek, and what are the ones that you tend to avoid. Also of note is that on every sensory system, you are going to see number 15 is something else, and that can be left blank. It's just a space for you if there is something that wasn't listed that you either seek or avoid, another check to put in the box. So how we're going to do this is we're going to take 7 minutes to have each of you go through this, and if you would like to talk through this, we're going to stay in the main room together. If you're someone who would prefer to work independently on this, totally cool and fine. We're going to open up a breakout room and you can go there, or feel free to just stay in the main room and listen. If you would like to talk through this in Spanish, we will have a separate breakout room for you to do so.
So can I talk about the rolling neck and the movement part?
Yeah.
For me, I just think rolling my neck back and forth, like that's like an exercise for me, and it relaxes me.
Yeah.
And
so I wonder, you might be a movement seeker.
One of my preferences for being calm is always some soft music. I took a couple of classes at MATC about, children, stress factors, trauma, so on. And we would have to turn the homework in. I can't do it with a quiet room. I thought something was wrong with me, but somebody say, yeah, they have to work with some kind of soft music going too. And there's that ocean sound. The sound when the ocean, when you're having baby rest, you put the children down for nap. And that ocean sound, I find that it me also. So then one other thing is like a soft blanket or towel. It's small, but I have it in my hand and rubbing it. And I was told by my auntie that I had a security blanket until I was second grade.
I think the smell is kind of tough for me. First of all, I don't like bad smells. I don't. It tends to make me feel like I want to regurgitate or something, but I'm kind of scared of smells almost.
Smells. I didn't even think about that. I forgot about, I have my dish soap, I switched it over to like Method so that it has a different scent. My hand soaps have scents. My cleaning products all have a different scent. And if I get bored with them, I'll rotate them. And it's really because I'm working at home and I need that stimulus. Um, so I didn't ever thought of considered scent. So thank you for bringing that to my attention, Benny.
You're welcome.
We're going to transition to talking about this from your program perspective. And for the purposes of our time, the time that we're here together, I have lumped in the two movement categories together into one, so proprioception and vestibular. And we're going to talk about 4 of the pieces: visual, auditory, touch, and movement. I'm glad that we all spent some time thinking about smell, because that's also important. For the purposes of our time here, we're going to think about each of these systems from your program environment perspective, starting by hearing from Beth.
When children walk in the morning, I have soft lighting, I have soft music playing, and we generally sit down then and read stories. During the day, if there are issues with the sound being too loud or it being too overstimulating, then I'll go back to the music and lighting and try to come up with different transition activities to calm everybody. So if the children are too loud and I start to hear that the volume and regulation of the room is a bit out of control, then I start to take control of the environment, and I do something like, say, a song from Snow White, and I'll say, hi ho, and I'll get all of the children to follow me, and then I will bring that back down to where they need to be. One thing that I do is I give children different helper jobs, and those helper jobs are all made up on the fly. So if I have somebody who's a little too overactive, I might say, could you be my sock helper and just put on somebody's sock or whatever.
So that helps calm their body down.
It's so random.
Yeah.
Like, could you be my glasses helper? And just, they're falling. It's crazy. But then they're like, oh. And then they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. I don't know.
One thing I love about Beth's response was she talked about, that redirection. And, when you see a child who is needing some movement, well, could you please help this other child get their sock on? Or, Beth is speaking to this power of observation and then supporting children by directing them to fulfill their sensory need. So we're going to hear more from Beth and Jennifer later on tonight. We're going to start by talking about the visual environment from those 4 categories I mentioned earlier. Children's brains are still developing top-down control over their visual attention. So what this means is, to provide an example, most adults, not all, but most adults, when I were to say, look at this image and focus on the red peppers, most of us would be able to focus in, hone in on the red peppers and, blur out, filter out the greens, the broccoli, the zucchini. Children do not yet have this ability to focus their visual attention in this way. They have what's referred to as bottom-up attention processing. They're going to see everything. In cluttered and disorganized early learning environments, children's brains are strained, and research has shown this to affect things like play, attention, behavior, and just their overall well-being. So that is why you will see it is recommended the well-organized, uncluttered spaces. Those are tools to help promoting children's calm nervous system. And this is going to be a theme as we move through each of these systems today, thinking about it from your environment. It's always easier to add sensory stimulation than to take it away. So it's always easier to add it for children who are seeking rather than take it away for children who are sensitive to it. So you're going to hear Beth and Jennifer talk about the soft lighting or, the simple walls that they have in their program. And this is why, because we'll talk about some strategies for our visual seekers out there later on. This is an example of what it may feel like for a child. The image here, same image. On the left, you see this is bottom up processing. On the right is top down. Bottom up is stimulus driven. Again, this is what children come into this world being able to do. They're taking in everything. Top down control, what most adult brains can do. This is what your brain would be doing if I asked you to focus on the globe in this picture. This is an executive functioning skill, our ability to control our attention. Now we're going to see the same environment, but it's going to be disorganized. Now this, if you look closely at the image, this is not, just children playing and using the materials. This is in a disorganized environment. There are piles of unrelated things. There is really no rhyme or reason. Think about looking at these two images, how much more a child has to take in when the environment is cluttered and disorganized. This, as you can imagine, is going to affect children's play, their learning, and their calm because they're going to have to take everything in. You can even see for top down, it's harder to blur out the excess noise in the environment when you're able to focus on something. And again, it comes down to sensory preferences. So how do you support children who, like myself, are visual seekers? They tend to enjoy those bright, busy environments. So thinking about play with color, light, and movement are three big themes that I've seen come up. So art is going to be a big source of playing with color. Things like light and shadow play. The image here on the left-hand side, the bottom left, is actually a homemade light table that was made with a clear bin and some lights underneath. And they're using some leaves to investigate what happens when you shine a light through a leaf. Things like pinwheels, fairly inexpensive. You could even make them yourself, and that plays with color and movement. Things like homemade kaleidoscopes. I've even seen folks who have older children make mobiles for the infants and hang them from the ceiling. So things like that. Using colorful silk scarves that you can see through. Just being able to have so many different options for seeing the world. Another example is contact paper. You put something semi-transparent in the middle, give it over to children, and then they can go around and look at things through different colors. And all of these things are material. These are all things that you can place in your environment and then direct children to in the moment. If you see over time, they may gravitate toward more visual opportunities. How to support children who are sensitive to visual input. They're going to need opportunities to minimize their visual input. All children need these opportunities, but particularly children who are sensitive to visual stimulus. So looking around your environment, are there places, if you're someone who loves posters, if you love color, if you love visually stimulating spaces, do you have areas where children can decompress? In this image here, I see a cozy corner tucked away where a child could just take a moment, the image on the left here, and decompress. So thinking about things like bright lights, it might be a lot for some children. Could you offer sunglasses for children, even indoors, who are needing a break from the bright lights that you may have? Using natural light when you can, and again, guiding children to, do things like maybe you need to close your eyes for a couple minutes. Just take a visual break. I know I do that a lot. So thinking about it from that perspective, are there ways for children to seek and avoid visual input? So speaking of a confined space for decompressing, this is a video about the power of the calming space in your program. Now, we are not advertising this particular product, because we know this is going to be fairly expensive and outside many of your budgets. Rather, we're going to watch this just to hear the content that it talks about, referring to setting up your calming space.
Classrooms thrive when children can self-regulate. But how do we help them develop this crucial skill? Hi, I'm Molly with Community Playthings, and I'm excited to introduce the Calm Nest, a simple, effective way to reduce sensory and emotional overwhelm so children can self-regulate before those big feelings take over. Throughout the day, classrooms can be full of energy, activity, and noise. For some children, a variety of factors can contribute to building stress, and without an outlet, this can lead to overwhelming emotions. Designed for one child at a time, the Calm Nest offers a proactive solution, a quiet, enclosed space designed to reduce sensory input and support calm within the classroom. Rather than waiting for dysregulation to happen, the Calm Nest empowers children to recognize what they're feeling and choose a moment of calm to breathe, regroup, and return when they're ready. It's more than a quiet corner. It's a supportive space that helps a child build the awareness and confidence to manage their emotions. With its rounded shape, soft surfaces, and warm wood tones, the Calm Nest creates a sensory-friendly space that reduces stimulation while remaining part of the classroom. The open front allows for safe supervision, while the interior offers just enough privacy for a child to feel secure and in control. Where and how you place the Calm Nest makes a difference. Positioned intentionally along a quiet wall, in a designated calm area, or tucked behind a shelf away from busy spaces, it becomes a valuable tool for supporting self-regulation. Designed to move easily, use these handles to reposition it to suit your space, routines, and students. Place a small basket of sensory tools like stress balls, a weighted blanket, or pillow just outside the Calm Nest, offering children the chance to choose what helps them feel centered before stepping inside. Too many manipulatives or materials aren't necessary, as they can contribute to excess stimulation. The Calm Nest isn't just a cozy space. It's an invitation. An invitation for children to notice what they're feeling, make a choice, and practice that lifelong skill of self-regulation. Because when children can self-regulate, the whole classroom thrives.
So as we move along together, we're going to see a few more examples of calming corners or calming spaces that can empower children to take a moment to decompress, calm their bodies, reduce their sensory input. So you'll see a few more examples as we move along. So we're going to get into the auditory environment. So in the same way that young children are still developing that the ability to filter out irrelevant visual information, it's the same. They're still struggling to filter out background noise. So anything that's irrelevant to children in that moment is considered background noise, and it's going to be tough for them to filter it out. So thinking about materials that make noises, other children using materials and speaking, background music, background TV playing, as you can see here on the slide. And again, it's always easier to add than to take away. So thinking again about sensory preferences. Are you someone, and I know that we heard from folks who needs auditory input to remain regulated. We're going to see another example of how this may feel like for a child. So again, that bottom up, stimulus driven, children are going to be taking in everything in their auditory environment when they're engaged in your program, in play, in a conversation with someone. So this could be, again, other children talking. It could be a CD player that you have on. It could be a TV on in an adjacent room. They're going to be taking it all in. For an adult, you can see in the image here, on the right, that top-down control, an adult is going to be able, most adults are going to be able to filter out that irrelevant sound around them so that they can focus on the conversation that they're having with a child. This is much harder to do for children. So again, this is an executive functioning skill that children are still developing, their ability to control their auditory attention. So this is why you'll often hear recommendations to space apart your loud areas. So like your blocks, your dramatic play from your quiet areas, like your calming space and your books. Separate those two as much as you can. I know that space limitations is a really real limitation, and that's not always possible. And we're going to talk about some strategies to balance that. So children seeking that auditory input, they're going to enjoy, similar to what we saw on the sensory checklist that we filled out, making and hearing a variety of sounds. So they're going to enjoy your instruments. They're going to enjoy music, materials that make interesting noises. They may be the ones frequently making noises with their own bodies, humming and singing. And again, it's always easier to add than it is to take away. So turning to the sounds of nature, which can inherently be regulating for children, is a great way, especially if you as an adult is an auditory seeker, which I know was mentioned earlier through ocean sounds and sounds of nature, a great way to help support children seeking auditory input. Your classics, like your musical instruments, homemade shaker bottles, turning to nature and the sounds of nature just in your own backyard, and what types of sounds we can make by hitting twigs on trees or, clinking rocks together, things like that. It does not have to be expensive materials. And another thing I want to point out is on the slide here on the top right, Linda over at Happy Hearts Childcare actually hangs musical instruments for children. She works with infants for children who are just learning to stand to be able to play them and utilize those hanging materials. So, and again, you'll hear me say this, guiding children to sing or make music. If you notice and you're observing that seems to be particularly regulating for their bodies. So guiding them to sing a song together or go and enjoy, and make music with the musical instruments that you have. Children who are sensitive to auditory input, they're going to need, all children are going to need this at some point, but particularly children who are sensitive to this, they're going to need opportunities to escape noise. So we all know early learning programs can be noisy places. So there are many ways that you can do this. One is offering noise reducing headphones as, it's not a toy, it's a tool. So if children are needing that to help themselves calm, having that as an option. That's the middle photo here. That calming space again. You can see that on the right. This is Jenny's house in Plover, Wisconsin. Jenny put her calming space in a closet that had 2 folding doors so that if children need a sensory break, they can go in there, close one of the doors, and that helps, block out some of that noise and that sound, and children can decompress that way. Just another reason to go outside during the day, sound in particular dissipates way faster when you're outside. So it's going to be less demanding on children who are sensitive to auditory input, and it's going to be more accessible. Making noise is going to be more accessible to children who love to make noise and hear noise. So just another reason to go outside more if you can. And now we're going to hear from Beth. Beth is going to talk about even more how she adjusts her environment and share a technique for managing the sound level.
When more and more of the children become dysregulated, then I will make adjustments for the whole group. I'll start to take note of, okay, what is happening with this particular child, that particular child, and how can I change the environment or the program to accommodate their needs and change the tone of the atmosphere. If the children are getting bored, but that's one thing that you don't always notice, I don't think, until you really look at, there's a lot of children that are now acting a particular way. So then I need to look at the whole program and say, okay, what do I need to change and what do I need to adjust? And then I may change out materials, or I may change the layout of the room, or I may change the lighting, or I may bring out different sensory activities, whatever I need to do that's going to kind of affect the most children.
So again, Beth speaks a lot about observing the children that she has in front of them and adjusting her environment to meet their sensory needs. And it's going to be for some children, it's going to be a lot of trial and error, and for some groups, it's going to be a lot of trial and error. Now we're going to think about touch, the tactile environment. And touch is actually our first sense to develop in utero. And as all of you know, it's critical for relationships, and it can be very relaxing to children. However, it also tells us what is safe and what is unsafe. It's very closely tied with our fight or flight response. So some children are going to be particularly sensitive to this, especially if they have experienced trauma. They may be sensitive to touch. So it's important to keep this in mind. Most children are going to want to dive in and explore the world and learn through touch, as some of you already mentioned earlier in our time today. And it's very connected with movement and body awareness. So let's talk about supporting children who are big tactile seekers. They're going to be the ones who enjoy getting messy and dirty. They may love being closer to other children, and they're going to want to feel everything and anything and everything. I look at this image here on the right, and I just love how this tactile seeker's preferences are being honored as she climbs into the sensory table with her bare feet. And that's at Sarah's Little's Adventures in Play School. And play with touch in a way that children can choose, whether that be sand, water, slime, Play-Doh, soft stuffed animals. These are all going to be calming for most children. I love the image in the middle here from Michelle's program, where the children are rolling out their own biscuits. So for a child who is more sensitive to touch and tactile input, you may offer them a rolling pin. And I apologize, I am in the back of my head realizing that there is an error here on the slide. The image on the far left is from Silly Sprouts. So I apologize, that is the wrong name of the program, but I just wanted to honor that that is from Silly Sprouts. And thinking about exploring a variety of textures, again, similar to visual and auditory, and turning to the endless opportunities of nature. So nature is going to be a lot rougher. It's a lot messier, and you're going to have a lot of free opportunities for children to play with touch. So, you know, grass, plants, leaves outdoors, sand, water, all of these things are going to be calming for children who are seeking that touch input, as well as hugs and deep pressure and anything that is affection oriented, like back scratches, tactile seekers, that's going to be particularly regulating for them. Some children who are more sensitive to touch, so they may not want to get messy. They will need lots of opportunity, again, to engage with their environment without, say, the gritty sensation of sand or the wetness of water. So that may be doing something like offering a paintbrush, giving a child who wants to play with water but doesn't like to get wet rubber gloves so that they can still engage with the opportunity, that the experience that you're offering them. All of these things, you know, offering a masher for children who are working with Play-Doh, all of these things, when you're giving children the opportunity to engage without touch, that's going to help support children who are sensitive to it. Next, we're going to hear from Jennifer. Jennifer actually has a space in her program dedicated to sensory health. So she has an indoor sensory friendly space, and we're going to hear from Jennifer all about that.
There are lots of sensory options such as fidgets, body socks, different tactile activities, large motor activities, a climbing cube with an arch that can also be used as a rocking boat for the kids that are seeking movement, or they can jump off of it onto an infant toddler like mat. There's also a couch in there, so if kids are needing, like when they first get dropped off in the morning, that's where we meet. And if they're just needing some extra snuggle time with me on the couch to get into the routine of the day, we have that available. We also have a spinning chair, I guess you would call it, that they can just get that spinning sensation that a lot of kids need. We also have access to parachute, musical instruments, beanbag toss, a large climb, like a floor tunnel climber type thing. And we try to rotate that as well seasonally. Just it's used a lot when we can't get outside because of too cold or too hot or storms, that kind of thing. We also use the space when we just need to dance and get our wiggles out and need to have more space than what's in the main playroom.
So Jennifer spoke a lot about the kinesthetic environment. Our kinesthetic systems, so vestibular and proprioception, those systems tell us where our body is in space in relation to the earth. So it is through these systems that we can walk upright, we can sit on a chair, we can give a hug to another person, and play with these systems is going to be calming for most children, some more than others, as we'll talk about. So, I think about just rocking a baby, something that activates that vestibular system, that's going to be calming for most children. And even for some of us adults, all these years later, myself included, swaying and rocking is still a regulation technique that I might employ that, began and was something that was calming from when you were an infant. So how to support our movement seekers, children seeking movement. So these children are going to enjoy, that constant motion, running, jumping, spinning, maybe even climbing on furniture. And they're going to be seeking movement that's, say, quick and spontaneous. They may, consistently bump into other children or into furniture. They're going to love to engage in that rough play. And these are children who also might seek out that physical affection, like the bear hugs, holding hands, any type of deep pressure. And children need regular opportunities for movement because, as you all know, that is what strengthens their bones and their muscles and their coordination. So this can be done indoors and outdoors. And I love the middle image here from Michelle's program. If you look closely, you can see there's the child in the pink shirt is actually carrying a tire across the outdoor environment. And this is what you'll hear referred to as heavy work. Can be very, very calming for children. Play with proprioception, body awareness, and feeling their bones and their muscles work. The two other photos here are examples of indoor climbing equipment for filling this movement need. I find that, your pop-up tunnels, those I really enjoy for indoor movement opportunities, especially for small spaces, because you can, pop them out. Children can, do army crawls and get out their proprioceptive and vestibular needs. And then when it's time to put it away, you can just squish it back up and put it in the closet. And again, taking this a step further, as I've been saying, direct children who you see have a movement need to fulfill that movement need. Have a plan. If you're indoors and you have a child who's showing you they have a movement need, what can you offer them as a safe option? So things like, your body is showing me you need to move. Should we put on a song and dance? Things like that. And we're going to see, I received this video, not 2 hours ago from Betty Ann, sent me this, and we're going to watch it. So this is just an example of an obstacle course that she has set up for her toddlers to go through and get out some of those movement needs.
So today is the first day of our week, and when toddlers master walking, they like to run. And I found myself like walk in the house, quit running, that type of thing. So one of the things to do that is to put up an obstacle course. They can't usually do it very fast. So this is where I use my dog beds, my jelly bean chairs. This is a dog bed. You could use pillows. You could use boxes for them to have to walk around like a maze. I have those stepping stones. There's like 6 of them. And then another thing that we have is like yoga boards and balancing boards. And so those are something I could do out there. But because it's summer, those are actually downstairs. But this was a quick way to slow down the running. Just thought I'd share it with you guys.
Thank you, Betty Ann. Just another example of indoor filling of that movement need in a safe and productive way. So now we're going to hear about Jennifer. She's going to speak about those movement seekers and how she supports them.
When conflicts start to arise over certain materials or equipment, that cues me to know that it's time to either rotate the toys or materials or rearrange how the room is set up. Like if they're repeatedly climbing on shelves or tables or dress up play kitchens, then I know it's time to change up how the room is set up to be able to redirect them towards what they need. And that might be that they need more climbing activities. Or if they're, if it's something that it's unsafe, like if they're jumping off of a shelf, then I try to figure out ways to give them that need that they're seeking.
All right, now we're going to talk about how to support children who may be sensitive to movement. So children who maybe prefer more sedentary activities, or they may avoid your swings outdoors or your slides, or maybe they'll use those pieces, but they're going to be slow and controlled in their movements. What I want you to think about as of right now in terms of this is, do you have places in your indoor and outdoor space for those children who need a break from movement or who are seeking those sedentary activities? So things like, in the middle image here from Michelle's program, the outdoor kitchen, where it's not very movement focused, where children can take a break, who maybe are more sensitive to movement. Maybe they get motion sickness more easily than others. I think about, on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see an I need a break bench in an outdoor space. And I put outdoor space examples because I think typically especially if I have a calming space in your program, but typically in indoor spaces, you're going to have sedentary activity options for children. So that's why I focused more on the outdoor spaces. I particularly love from Valerie's program there on the left, you can see just a pop-up tent that, maybe children don't want to watch other children move. They really need a sensory break. Popping this up outdoors, throwing some books in there, and having it so that children can go there and fulfill their sensory need of decompressing while you're still outdoors and children are playing and being able to fill their own movement needs. So it's that balance of how do you support children who are seeking input and also sensitive to it. So we've gone through each of the big systems that I have for our time together today. I'm going to put it back on you to think about your program and what opportunities you're currently offering to children. So again, you can choose to look over this resource independently, or feel free to share out what your thoughts are in a big group. For the sake of time, I'm going to give this to you to fill out and look over, if you think it would be useful to you. What this offers is a space for you to consider and reflect on what is your program currently offering? What is available for children who are seeking that sensory input? And what is available for children who are who want to avoid it. So those are the three big pieces, the three big questions that you'll see this resource is asking you. But just for the sake of time, what does your sensory environment offer to children, just in a general sense? If you would like to share through the chat, I would so much, and I know everyone else would so appreciate it. So please feel free if something you saw was similar to what you currently do or reminded you of things that you offer, we would love to hear from you. Marilena says it's very colorful, so lots of play with color. Morgan says, right now we just have fidgets and a beanbag chair for our calm down corner, but after this I have ideas to add tools to satisfy all types of sensory needs. That's great. Jennifer says, I've had a lot of oral seeking children. Nice, so you're noticing I have children with an oral need. Gonna have frozen teethers, chewy tubes, jewelry, chewing jewelry, love that. Offer straws, vibrating teethers, etc. And I know this is a really big question, so I appreciate you all just throwing stuff in there because I know this is a really, really big question that I just asked you. So again, if you think it would be helpful, please feel free to use that resource in the future. So we're just going to dip our toes in the water here, thinking about children's emotional well-being through the promotion piece of intentional teaching of calming techniques. So we touched on this already by considering your role in sensory health and directing children to fulfill their sensory need. Now we're going to talk about it from an emotional well-being perspective. So again, emotional well-being is coming before children can feel calm and in their bodies and open to exploring and learning. So just to reiterate, you are that secure base for children's emotional well-being. And it's through this pattern of responsive adult support that children are able to learn to regulate their emotions. When young children do not have an adult to support them, they're either, when they reach out and they don't receive a response, they're either gonna withdraw, so they'll shut down. And sometimes this looks like they're calm, but they're not calm. They're still feeling stressed in their body. And that also means that they're gonna have quite a bit lower of a tolerance level in the future if something else happens, or they could escalate. And they'll do this in attempts to get your support. So this could be that increased crying, following you around. It could even be destructive behavior as well. So it is the educator that helps children support and organize their emotions to then be able to get back to that state of calm. Now, with that being said, it is a lot. It's also impossible to support every child every time they need you. So we're going to talk about how that balance of strategies that you work on with children before they go into that, that need of, I need you right now to support me in my feelings because I'm in my feelings. We're going to talk about those techniques to refer back to because you've already set that up with children. So in this way, you're going to be scaffolding children's ability to calm themselves. And first, we're going to hear from Jennifer. She's going to speak about the many ways that she creates a calming atmosphere, but also supports their emotional well-being.
I choose calming colors for the walls, the rugs, and set up the room so that it flows for the children to play and create so that they have space. We have feeling charts and other visuals on the walls at the kids' level so that if a conflict arises, we refer to the visual and help give them choices of how to resolve their conflict. We also foreshadow what's next by providing visual aids, and even more so for children that we know are more anxious about transitions, such as parents leaving. So we've created some visuals to help them be able to sit down with us and point to each day of the week with a picture of our schedule. And then when parents come back and reassure them that moms and dads always come back.
All right. We're going to talk about something that Jennifer highlighted, and that is emotion language. So adults, you as educators, you're helping children begin to recognize the sensations that are happening in their bodies and connect that with emotions, with a word for an emotion, and then how to support these emotions. You do not come into this world knowing what angry is. Someone taught you to associate the feelings of, or the sensation of clenched fists, the flushed cheeks, the furrowed brow, the frown as anger. And it's also important to recognize that the expression and categorization of emotions and feelings are culturally dependent. So emotion language, or essentially talking about feelings and internal states, is so powerful because it helps children communicate their needs to others. It helps them calm themselves because they know what they're feeling. And it also shows to help children understand that other people have different emotional states and different feelings than their own. So it supports that theory of mind. So even though it maybe feel silly as an adult to constantly be talking about emotions, you are setting children up for success when you do this, because they're going to be able to, over time, identify feelings within themselves and then have increased empathy for others. So on the slide here, you can see 2 examples of feeling charts. Jennifer spoke about that in her interview. These can be used as check-ins with children who may not have the words to describe, and also through playful games, which we'll talk about. And I do recognize it can feel silly as an adult to constantly be talking about feelings, but this is what children need, and they're going to use this to recognize and communicate their needs. I had one child once, when I was a Head Start teacher, who one day as usual, I knelt down and I was like, "You are so mad." And she looked at me and she said, "I'm not mad, Miss Grace. I'm frustrated." I'm like, okay, you are frustrated. What can we do when we're frustrated? So she was at the point, and I was wrong in my identification of her feelings, and she communicated that to me. And that was through, over time, a lot of talk about feelings. So here are a few more examples. I will send you the feeling thermometer and the feeling wheel in a follow-up email. Another game I wanted to quickly highlight is one of my favorites to play with children. It's called Guess the Emotion Game. So this can be done if you have dolls, like you can see here on the top right, that have different emotions. It also can be done if you don't have dolls, just by printing out different feeling faces. You pick one, you hide it behind something, and then you as the educator act out what the feeling is. Children think it's hilarious. And even though it's not like you actually feeling that emotion, you're still talking about feelings and identifying some of the sensations that a child might be able to recognize in the future. And they just think it's hilarious because you as an educator are pretending to be mad or, sad and pretending to cry. And so role playing in this way can be a great way to find those playful moments to talk about feelings with children. And this can even be done giving the role as the actor over to preschool age children as well, to practice acting out some of our feeling words that we know. So just one game I wanted to shout out. Breathing. It sounds like almost all of you are pretty familiar with this idea of that breathing is really helpful to calm your body. You're going to be hearing this a lot. Breathe with your youngest children. And by me saying that, I mean, this begins before children can even do it with you. So an infant gets frustrated when trying to fit a shape into a shape sorter. You go over as an adult, you kneel down, and the first thing you do is take a deep breath. Toddler gets really angry at a preschooler because they're using the Play-Doh toy that they actually wanted to use 5 minutes ago, but now they're not using anymore. The first thing you do is you go over there, you kneel down, you take a big deep breath. You need to model this for children if you want children to eventually use this technique. So they're similar to feeling charts. There are many techniques to practice breathing in playful ways to engage children. One being breathing buddies, beloved by children. You have them lay down on their back. You place a stuffed animal on their belly. You have them raise up the stuffed animal when they breathe in, and then have it go down on their belly as they exhale. Conscious Discipline is another organization that they have a lot of different breathing techniques with different names and actions associated with them. That's what you see here on the right. The drain breath, for example, you hold your arms out, you breathe in, squeeze your fists, and then as you exhale, you have children release the water in their drain. However, you can make up your own. So here's an example of a fun, engaging breath that with preschool age children that Michelle came up with herself.
Roller coaster, ready? Max, you may go. Tallulah. Tallulah. Plate and fork and cup, please. Jaylee, look at you waiting.
And you see that she did that during a transition. So she practiced that breath as they waited for others to wash their hands, and then they're going to go upstairs to have breakfast. You can make up your own. Play with impulse control and body awareness. So those stop and go games are also super helpful for children to be able to feel like to practice having control over their body, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So there's also songs that support this. One of my favorites is Fast and Slow by the Laurie Berker Band. Also thinking about freeze dance songs, Red Light, Green Light. These are all games that are super impactful because they help children connect their mind and body, and it helps them practice their impulse control. We're going to see Michelle again. This is an example of preschoolers. They just spent the morning talking about tornadoes. They had a recent tornado warning. So that's the context of this video.
Good morning, everybody. You were talking a lot about tornadoes this morning, so I thought to get our bodies going, we could be trees this morning.
Wait, tornadoes.
Well, it's going to get windy. So are we ready to be some trees?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we have to do first? Stand up. Okay, and because it's going to get windy, make sure your arms don't touch anybody. So you got to find a spot, a little, not too far, stay right there. Nope, not too far, because there's spots right there. There you go. Okay, so stay there. Now, what do trees have?
Branches.
Ooh, before they have branches though, they have to start with roots. And how strong do our roots have to be?
Very strong.
Okay, so find your strong roots. Ready? Let's close our eyes. And now your roots are growing out of your feet into the ground. Now we take another breath and our branches are going to be our arms. Grow them up. So Tallulah, I can see that your roots are not very strong right now. Your feet should be down on the ground. And we should not be moving because we want to have strong roots. Ready? Now that wind's going to pick up. Are you ready? Oh, don't move those feet. Remember, they got those roots underneath them. Oh no, it's getting windier. It's getting windier. Windier.
Yep.
Uh-oh. You need strong roots. Don't move those feet. Windier, windier, windier. Uh-oh. The storm is passing. Storm is passing. Where are those branches? Ready? We still. The storm is all done. Breathe in. Okay, I'm going to try and blow you over. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to check those roots. Oh, pretty strong. Ready? Uh-oh, you didn't move. Uh-oh, moved a little bit. Oh, those other roots were good. Here we go. Oh, no moving. Let's check you out. Ooh, pretty strong. All righty. Breathe in one more time. And come sit back down.
Whoa.
Good work. Whew.
Wasn't that just magical? I told Michelle I'm happy that I recorded it because if I explain, this magical thing that just happened, I'm not sure if people would believe me. So you can see in that video, there was play with that impulse control and that breathing and that body awareness. She brought the children's heart rates up as they were, moving their bodies to the tornado wind coming. And then she brought them back down. So again, she was helping guide children's emotional state and playing with it through this game of something that's relevant to them. We're going to be trees and a tornado is going to come and you're going to be so strong that you're not even going to move. Your roots are not going to be pulled up because they're so strong. Again, one other note I want to make, I know Michelle knows all of these children very well and that they've done something similar to this before, like this before. If you know you have a child who might have trauma in their life or have are experiencing toxic stress or might be more sensitive to touch, I would recommend if you wanted to implement something like this, before you touch a child, asking like, can I test your roots? And then they'll say like, yeah, let's do it because they want to be tested, but some children might not. And so I just wanted to name that too, because some children might not want to be touched in that way. All right, literature is also a really rich source of emotion processing language. So I'm going to send you a database of children's books that touch on different social and emotional topics in a follow-up email. Here are just a few examples. One to pull out and highlight in particular is Too Much, An Overwhelming Day. This one just speaks to sensory processing challenges and how everything is just feeling like too much in that moment and why it's important to take a moment to decompress. All right, we have a little bit of time. Anyone else want to share? What are your calming techniques that you practice with children currently?
Yeah, we asked our kids if they would like to take a walk and talk about it.
Yeah.
And that helps calms them down because by the time they're done walking to the little space that we're going to walk, their minds are already on something else. So.
Thank you.
I mainly work with kids that are nonverbal, and I don't know if what I do is right, but normally I just point to the door of like, let's take a walk. And outside our classroom, we have like this like hopscotch type of thing, and they do it, and then we get to the end, we come back, and then they're calm.
Thank you. So using movement as a regulation technique. And I was going to say, blow out the candles is such a fun one. If you don't know what that is referring to, you hold up 10 fingers and then you have children blow out each of them individually, and it helps them take one breath at a time. Quite a few breaths, actually. Betty Ann, did you want to add something before we wrap up?
This might not seem intuitively a calming thing, but I will have the children pause and we do a cleanup. Just like, oh, there's too many toys on the floor, we're gonna step on it, and we'll just do not a thorough cleaning up, but just pause for a little bit and put some toys away we're no longer using. And that creates calm for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. I can see why that would help.
Another thing that we do is we have the emotion chart. And if a child is very emotional, we will ask them if they could show us which picture matches how they feeling right then. And once they share, then we ask them, how can we help you get back to your happy place? And that seems to really calm them down because now they're thinking, and so.
Yeah. I mean, I love being asked, how can I help you? That bid for connection that you're doing. Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation tonight and spending, part of your evening with us and sharing your thoughts and all of your ideas and being very mindful and reflective about your space and what you're offering to children and how you're also supporting yourself, because that's a big balance too in this work. So thank you.